So we find ourselves marking the 1st of August on the calendar, waiting for the peak of the full moon this evening. Online, we're told this is the sturgeon moon, named after the ancient prehistoric creature swimming through the rivers of North America. It's one of the oddities of all these curious moon names is the fact that they come from Farmer's Almanac, which often uses names of the moon that are taken from Native American tribal cultures. The Anglo-Saxons seems to call it a grain moon, the Chinese a harvest moon, but I believe the ancient Celts called it the lynx moon. But it marks a midway point between the summer solstice in June and September's equinox. It is the feeling of a harvest moon in many ways in August. The final leisure days of the summer. In astrology, we find the moon is in Aquarius, one of the air signs. Is there a particular tug upon our emotions? While the full moon is a funny thing. It's always some strange character flipping out. The lunacy of the lunatics. 100 years ago, we would lock them up in some state house in the countryside. Now we meet them entangled with strange entities which are best ignored. It's interesting that the Native American tribe in Canada, the Cree, called this moon the flying up moon, because it would be the time of year when small birds would be taking a step out of the nest and attempt to fly for the first time. In the New Age, we're told to release our intentions on the full moon and begin new ventures on the new moon, as though our lives are hopelessly entangled with the great clockwork in the sky. So the task of the sovereign individual doing their best to awaken from this dream is not to be mere food for the moon, lost in reaction, rather restoring the power of their own creation, for all that is synthetic surrounding us and trying to encase us, there's all in its power for us to look, to freeze, to stare. The strangest temporal marker at this moment has been watching the cattle be cattle. But that is all they know how to be. The phenomena of Barbenheimer. The parents dutifully taking their daughters dressed in pink. The overheard conversations with supermarket staff talking about new desires for Barbie tattoos, while the midwits are presented the serious drama propaganda of the forebears of technocracy from World War II, all encouraging you to feel like a sophisticated, intellectual, curious person perusing the top 10 books in the Sunday Times. Our culture fed to us like swill given to pigs to fatten us up. To produce excess emotions like sweat pouring forth from our aura, to be caught in some nefarious means. Well, all this entertainment does is reveal that the masses are the masses who have had no awakening or understanding or trumpeting revelation in the privacy of their consciousness, connection with the one true source of reality flowing into this dimension. They reveal themselves to be as they are, how they have always been, but find themselves now in this modern time as sheep without a shepherd, surrounded by wolves. When we have these rare occasions when the masses move in a cultural direction, in just a banal observation of people enjoying the popular culture presented to them, it's hard not to think of these things as the temperature of the water being tested by the system architects to see how much the masses will dutifully respond to the cues of colours, lights, words, sounds, vibrations, those that are memed out by the corporate media into the morphic field resonance of the mass consciousness. It's that intriguing phenomena of the overheard conversation in the supermarket and walking along the seaside in the evening or quiet afternoon, and you hear repeated those memes, those key words, those search terms, those corporate advertisements, those latest narratives. It's seeing what is regurgitated back by the mind of the mass, of how they help to co-create on behalf of the system, unconsciously, using the sleeping power of their subconscious mind to manifest the desired reality on behalf of the technocratic architects and engineers of this simulacrum. Not that we live in a simulation, obviously. It's that a simulated synthetic existence is projected on top of nature, and the innocent, naive and gullible come to confuse the simulacrum for reality. For it is the task of the shepherd to inform the sheep that they need to be as wise as serpents while remaining as innocent as doves, that there are wolves all around them. But in this strange epoch, people are taught nothing more than regurgitation, as the human being is attempted to be transformed into nothing more than a biological machine mirroring the reality of psychopaths, sociopaths and narcissists. That the normalization of all this spiritual illness allows those wolves to remain hidden in plain sight, as we're all made corrupt by the corruption surrounding us in what can only be termed a kind of fraudulent civilization we live within. You can go very deep through many layers, many rabbit holes, on peeling the onion as any topic, object, person, idea. As the more you zoom in, the more information is revealed almost into infinity. To pick your specialist subject on Mastermind and go into the most excruciating detail. But it's not always necessary. Sometimes you can just take a strategic view, point of view of the eagle's eye, and observe simple things like parents unwittingly indoctrinating and initiating their children into corporate culture, to see how deeply the masses sleep. And those initiations and indoctrinations are thought of as a treat for the child, to take that innocent consciousness and expose it to Star Wars or Batman or Barbie, echoing their own childhood indoctrination, implanting the ideas of the sick society to their own offspring. Sort of sounds like doom and gloom, doesn't it? Sort of hopeless nihilism. But one has to discern what's being presented to us. It only reminds you that the path of the sovereign organic individual, the vehicle, the physical vehicle, offers a space for your soul to perceive this reality and interact with it. That the masses have always been so... It's a funny thing to think how these observations allow you to imagine yourself living in ancient times, biblical times, Roman times, Greeks, the Egyptians, or the mysteries of the Celts wandering between France and Spain, Ireland, following a spiral path through the labyrinth. You can see how humanity hasn't changed at all. It's just we're faced as being an organic creature. Now bombarded with the full spectrum warfare upon our consciousness. But the task of the sovereign individual has always been to know thyself and to find and meet the others who know thyself. Everything else passes by like the weather, and you can only stoically shrug your shoulders as the masses do as they are instructed. What I imagine is that the system engineers look at the turnout of the population and the profits made from Barbenheimer as their own temporal marker, like a testing of their own technological influence, what percentage of people it works upon, like something to test in the lull between events. And that is where we are now, I think, in the run-up to 2025. Between 24 and 25 is where we shall see what prophecies of remote viewers come to pass. But anyway, I just imagine some psychopath plugged into a computer looking at spreadsheets and seeing the latest report reveals 30% of the cattle show complete behavioral indoctrination and control. That when the appropriate sound, vibration, colour, light is deployed, the masses react appropriately to the cue of behaviour and the mould of Skinner's behaviourism, the idea of Pavlov's dog deployed on the level of an entire society. For we find ourselves living in this strange, liberal, progressive, utopian garden where large groups of people have no comprehension of their imprisonment within pleasure and convenience, as though the people who lived under the Soviet Union knew they lived under a totalitarian system that they wished to escape from, that they wished for it to collapse. While the people in the West haven't even begun to comprehend their situation of being encased in propaganda, lies, their economy a Ponzi scheme, healthcare making them sick, education nothing more than the rote learning of indoctrination. And we look on askance at the bubbling masses chattering about Barbenheimer, and we see them all marching in a parade, the great parade into the abyss, like a conga line of lemmings walking towards a cliff. And anyone who dares to protest or offer to help them can only be met with fear and violence, because the interior of their minds has been so colonized that it causes them physical pain to process that cognitive dissonance. For those individuals lost in the synthetic dream of the society, they've unconsciously chosen to only allow themselves to awaken through severe trauma. And even then, many of them don't. But that is their loss in life. Somehow the natural divine biological dance has been so confused and contorted. People lost all sense of their capacity to create. You could say that's the great secret of this reality and our place within it, that we are like the puzzle piece to our own life, that we are always meant to co-create how we live. While the masses have lost themselves and accepted their degradation as being nothing more than animals in an endless and meaningless line of evolution, somehow so completely inverted. They've been so confused, so distorted by Operation Chaos and Operation Mindflip to believe that their society, with its inversion of the tree of life placed in the ground and growing towards the density of a mineral-based life form, is that they haven't even noticed They have exchanged physical liberation for their spiritual degradation. What happens next? The next thing is the new moon, and then a full moon, and then a new moon, and then a full moon. So we go through all the astrological signs and their archetypal energies, moments to reflect and moments to plant seeds. But it's not to be depressed or confused. It's just a reminder of where we are on our journey and what faces us. Of how there's nothing to be returned to. There is nothing to be. There is nothing you can go back to once you cross at least a 51% process of awakening, because that is to sin against yourself, to attempt to go back to sleep, to desire to be no more than food for the moon, for the emotions of your nervous system to be an interface with things unseen and beyond us in the macrocosm. Everything becomes a reflection of everything else. The masses reveal the sickness of the society. And there is no process of adjusting to them. There is only a process of remembering your own sovereignty and power to continue where the river flows. We're all artists searching for the right medium to share our message of divinity. Message of remembering, a message of restoring our lives to the grandeur that is our rise. We stoically observe all the confusions of the society. But we know we're not part of it. Who we are is a part of the human family, remembering itself before it came into contact with the machine. For it wasn't just that the Native Americans beneath their sturgeon moon were genocided and destroyed, even down to their language and songs and customs, for they had individuals who could take personal alchemical journey to remember. It is not the imperialism of Britain, France, Belgium. It's the fact that we were all tribal people living upon the earth as stewards in harmony with the cycles around us. We were all tribal people who at one time or another came into contact with the machine. The machine that over thousands of years attempts to transform us into automatons, for us to be nothing more than a biological reaction, like a mouse in a maze. And we see now this mouse utopia is a very sick place. We realise how much we have figured out. We realise how wise we were as a child, and not trusting the undeserved authority of teachers and bureaucrats we encountered. For we are only ever statistics to systems. For Stalin, one death was a tragedy, while a million was a statistic. And those atrocities of history that we read are somehow lost upon those who believe they live in a liberal place, so internalized are the delusions. For when we were tribal people, to break away from the tribe, to live on your own in the forest, most likely meant death for many people. And so we carry these instincts, and all those instincts and inner knowings and intuitions, behavioral patterns of how we compute and store information within our organic mind. All this is known by the parasites that be. And the long line of Freud and other pederasts who wrote their sickness into ideology to justify their crimes against innocence and God. So we all go through a process of decompression. A dark night of the soul where we grasp for some meaning in the darkness and find the first thing offered to us is a black pill. But the parasites that be are as happy to provide a black pill to us as much as a white pill. For as long as you or unhappy, or give up, or stop creating, or slowly commit suicide through a bottle of whiskey, they are content to have occupied your consciousness and given you an exit into the abyss. What they don't want is for you to find your creativity, balance and harmony within the natural cycles. You see, the place we find ourselves is not hell, nor is it a simulation. It's a place to remember who we are, what we're capable of, and why we chose to come again. And should we fear the light, or fear another trip, another journey? Should we fear everything and believe everything is a lie, even that most natural processes as our own death? Well, we are but a child of nature, and nature is nothing to fear. We pass through this world, and the spiritual meanings we find are not an escape, as so often that seems our first encounter. The idea of leaving our body, of going to realms of imagination, fantasy, fantasia, escapism. But I think over time we find that the spirituality that moves us to be creative and in harmony in this world is one where we draw into this realm. That we are the great receptor and mirror of a higher reality. Our task to remember this capacity lies within. All that is without is to make us forget and live as animals, enslaved to desire, enslaved to food, sex, drugs, alcohol, the synthetic stimulation of an electrical, digital system that wants our God-given divinity to be nothing more than an open-mouthed biological machine, just endlessly consuming content, amused to death. And that is the sickness of our situation and its absurdity. That as the earth is attempted to be transformed, to be terraformed, so do they constantly attempt a terraforming and metamorphosis of the organic human being. And our journey is just remembering that our choice is always present, whether to look or look away, to look at what interests us, or just to be open-mouthed in front of the television, laptop and smartphone. But that is how they see us, as nothing more than batteries, open-mouthed cattle. Something laughable and grotesque. We see human beings as really so innocent and guileless. One could have sympathy for the devil and the system architects, the parasites that be, looking at the people around us behaving as no more than cattle. For in all the horrors of the black pill and the documentaries of bit juice, it leaves out the fact that those cattle were brought into a traumatized world, a corrupt society, a dog-eat-dog world of survival and broken relationships and confused childhoods. And they're offered paths of dissonance, disconnection, alienation. For the sleeping individual who is traumatized doesn't realize that they unconsciously seek experiences that are disassociative. In time, they can realize their own pain can be transmuted into wisdom. But until then, they live as biological puppets. You see, the cattle weren't raised in a tribal culture with a shaman and priest, a warrior and chief looking out for their physical and spiritual safety. We grow within synthetic systems where the television is the all-seeing eye colonizing your mind to reproduce a view of the world within your mind. So it can never be any negative thing to reject what is presented to us. The process of moving through the natural cycles. Sometimes there is no clear path or thing to do, and one learns when to wait and when to act. But every day is an opportunity to remember to move closer to yourself, to know the majesty of that divine connection. To move towards a natural place and ways of being. For the mind is a tool as much as a computer, something to be employed by you in an act of creation. So we will find our harvest. We will see the stalking lynx through the field. We see the first birds beginning to fly. And we see the ancient beasts, shimmering silver in the infinite flow of the river green forest. And we remember just one more tiny sense impression one glimmering reflection of creation within our soul. And it provokes us to ask ourselves, who are we a mirror of? Why did we come? And where do we go from here?